Is it recording now?
It is on my end.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this week's Remind podcast. My name's David Masterton, and I'm joined by Dr. Ashleigh Moreland. And today we are continuing off last week's episode. And I did ask Ash, what's we going to call this? And she said the bomb of revelation. And I think this is with a slightly traumatic twist. So last week we spoke about unearthing trauma in hindsight, which may have sent us into a little bit of a rabbit hole into childhood, which is normally, I suppose, the big one. It doesn't, and it's not exclusive just to childhood trauma. You could experience something like a week ago or a year ago in the moment. You sort of worked through it, or you dealt with it, the adrenaline's pumping, whatever's going on, and then you move on and you go on to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And the next sort of break in the traffic, we'll call it, you slow down, you start to realize, oh, something really big did happen. So we're kind of talking about it in that sense as a whole. However, I think we can all relate to the fact that childhood has just quite a number of these, either a big event or just a whole number of smaller ones which built up into something larger. So, and we're going to unpack that just a little bit more. So, Last week, Ash, some things came up as I was chatting. Did you want to give us a bit more of a insight as to what came up?
Yeah, so I see this. I mentioned last week that this is something that I've never seen a podcast episode on. I've never read about it. I've never seen it anywhere. And no doubt my phone is listening, and now the algorithm will present me with all of this stuff everywhere. But my point being that this is just a topic of healing that I don't see people talk about. And I mentioned last episode that I've witnessed it even with my own clients, where I started drawing this graph. So in Rise and Thrive, one of the things that I observed over years and years and years of developing this program and literally being people's tour guide into their own awakening and evolution was I would see where people would come in almost with like these blinkers on, these blindfolds to all this other reality. And I had an experience on a plane once where there were really fluffy clouds beneath the plane. And so we're coming into land, but we're kind of hovering over these clouds. And I had this thought where I was like, man, if I didn't know that there was a whole entire world underneath those clouds, I could look around the plane and think that this is all there is. That the people, this is all the people that exist. This is our world. This is our reality. This is normal. That we live in a world that is on top of this white ground, this white floor, and we operate in this big tunnel tube in the sky. But I know, because of my prior experiences and because of my frame of reference, I know that there is a whole world beneath those clouds. I know that there are more people. I know that there's more to life. I know that there are more experiences. I know that there's nature, not just blue and white. I know there's more colors. I know all this stuff, but that exists beneath the level of the clouds. And in order for me to see that, I need to be going through the clouds, which is going to be turbulent, right? It's going to be shaky and it's going to be rocky. And this was around the time where I was really starting to unpack this about going, man, the journey between people living in their limited reality, in their little bubble of their relationship, their childhood, their past, their job, their parenting, their home life, that is their normal, their tiny little bubble, in order for them to go from their bubble of safety and well, it's not even really safety, it's familiarity.
Comfort,
to the big, real reality outside of their little bubble, they're going to have to shake. It's going to be turbulent. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be scary at times. Just like that aeroplane going through that big, thick, massive clouds. It was shaky. It was bumpy. There were kids screaming and crying, and it was a bit scary. And so I thought that was the perfect analogy for this, because I see it often where when people, and this is why I think it's more common now in our generation, because we have access to content everywhere. You go on TikTok and you can start to learn about the red flags and warning signs of an unhealthy relationship. You go onto Instagram and you can start learning about what a healthy parenting dynamic could look like. You go on to YouTube and you start learning about what a healthy workplace can look like. And that is like getting a glimpse of life beneath the clouds, or life outside of your bubble of comfort and familiarity. And the more awareness you have of what is real outside of your normal, the more discomfort you get. And it's the discomfort of revelation, the discomfort of realization of, oh my gosh, I've been in a domestic violent relationship for the last 10 years and I actually didn't even know it because I thought it was normal. Oh my gosh, I have been exploited in my job and I didn't even know because I just thought this was what work was meant to be like. I just thought this is how bosses treated their staff.
I allowed it, you know.
Yeah, but they didn't even know that they were allowing it because they didn't know that it was something that couldn't be allowed. Right. And this is what, you know, the start of the previous episode, I mentioned some really, I think we need to put a trigger warning, some really big stuff. It's like when you don't know, when you don't have a frame of reference that something isn't meant to be that way, or that something could be any other way, you don't even know that you're allowing it. You don't even know that there's a possibility to not allow it. You don't know that there's a possibility that you could walk away or that you could make a different choice. And so something that I have seen again and again and again, and I spoke to my husband about it. I said to him, I just don't know. Like, I was really struggling with my role in this because so often I felt like I had to traumatize people in order to lead them to their utopia. And the reason for that is because I had to be the one, I had to be the catalyst to smash their world as they know it to complete smithereens so that they could see that there was something better for them. And that's a role that is not an easy role to have. It's something that I need to be really, really grounded in. It's something that I need to be able to hold them safely through that journey to their new utopia, rather than opening something up, smashing their world to smithereens, and then kind of going, oh, well, good luck with that. And that's one of the gripes that I have. I've been to so many events where the speaker on stage has done that. The speaker on stage, I call it the grenade. They walk in the room, throw a grenade, smash that person's structure of reality to smithereens. Everyone is in a complete state of disarray, of having major trauma responses, realizing that their whole entire life as they knew it was not healthy or not normal. Well, normal, but maybe not ideal, with zero support to be able to walk them out of it. And to me, that like is a really unethical thing to do and an approach to have. So one of the things that I used to talk about in Rise and Thrive is that as your awareness grows, as you become more aware of what a healthy dynamic looks like, and therefore you become more aware that your dynamic was unhealthy, it is normal for that to be uncomfortable. So it's almost like life gets harder, life gets worse before it gets better. Because we have to confront that. We have to confront that truth, that reality. And I remember a comment that someone said once, and it was, the extent of your growth and evolution is entirely dependent on the level of truth that you can sit with without running away.
The analogy that's coming to mind for me at the moment is go hold a basketball underwater and then let it go. Is it just going to gently float to the top? Or is it going to fly out of, the further you hold a basketball down in a pool underwater, you let it go, the thing flies up in the air and then comes down, then will eventually settle on the water. it won't just naturally come up and just go bloop and sit on the top of the water. But if you don't mind, I wanted to add something about when people don't know. Now, knowing something means you know the how, what, why, and when. That's knowing. That's all up here in the grey matter. But they feel it. Because if they didn't feel it, they'd be happy. There's nothing to change. They're not in front of the...
unhappy is normal, they don't know that they're not happy.
No, but they still feel unhappiness, right? And this is where they go and try and soothe with romance or excitement or fun or, dopamine hits, right? That's why entertainment is either incredibly sort of rom-com or it's, sort of tragic or it's this and that and something else. It's that they can feel it. They know there's a better life out there. They just don't know, number one, if they deserve it. Number two, if they feel it's achievable. Or number three, based on all the limiting beliefs, could they do it while still carrying these limiting beliefs? Because these limiting beliefs are the guardrails of society that have set that you cannot do anything but this. And I've heard it from many people. They're sort of like, I would have done that, but I couldn't because ... And they feel it because otherwise there's this bliss of...
I think that's the point that I'm making, though, is that you still have to be far enough away along that continuum to have an awareness and to feel it. Because, like, back to my plane analogy, if I had no reason to even think about a reality underneath the clouds, I wouldn't be feeling anything relating to that reality because there's nothing to stimulate that. And this is kind of also what the experience in the Philippines showed me, is that there were people who had no reason to even think about any other reality because to them it might as well have not existed. And so you look at them, they were happy. They were playing, they were laughing, they were, seemingly pretty carefree. And so this is where that ethical...
And you're suggesting that in this environment, there's no point in time that unless they're aware of something else, they won't feel...
Exactly. So that it is like part of the journey. It's like in marketing, for instance, they'll talk about people who are problem aware. But there are people even who are experiencing a problem that I can see. Everyone else who has that higher level of awareness can see that person's experiencing the problem, but they are oblivious that it's even a problem. So they're not even at the point of being miserable yet. They're actually pretty content because they don't even know that there's an alternative. And I think that, like, it's that step even before that.
Yeah, see, in my experience, intuition knows before my logic knows.
Maybe.
So for me, that's very foreign.
Yeah, exactly. But I think the whole point of, if you want to look at the soul and forgetting, it's that amnesia effect where we get plonked into our reality and it's our soul's desire to want to expand. And so eventually that awareness will kick in, but we're not born with that. We're not until we have some kind of catalyst, whether it's intrinsic or extrinsic, until we have some kind of catalyst that comes in and says, hey, it's not normal for X, Y, and Z to happen. That's kind of what I'm talking about, like that complete paradigm shift of then going, oh, and then that disruption, that discomfort, that drive, because it's the discomfort that drives us towards taking action.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I guess the bit for me, the realize, to be aware of something else first, to then have that is like, I think, and in my experience, I've always known there's something bigger. I just had to try and numb that out. And that's probably just a very personal experience for me. But getting back to the whole thing, yes, awareness is important to show someone. But also, like, when you sort of talk about people playing and being happy, it's like you and I didn't have the best of childhoods, but you could take a sample of our time when we were young, we were just incredibly happy. And just sort of go, well, you know, like for me, my fondest memories of when I used to go see my cousins or, you know, go do that and play. It doesn't mean that there wasn't a kid carrying this stuff with him. But in that moment in time, the world's great because I've got everything right there in that moment that I ever wanted. But then that will change in the future. Because that boy has to go to bed. And that was pretty difficult for me because sort of like, oh crap, can't outrun this. Can't outrun what happens when I close my eyes and the brain goes and this happens and that and that and that. But yeah, so I just wanted to add that part from my own experience that I think deep down there's always a drive. Like outside of just being philosophical and academic, there's a reason why people go, what is the meaning of life? And have done for quite a while. As opposed to...
And I think that in Western societies, we are really privileged in that we, like, for example, we went to school where there were different socioeconomic status of, you know, kids from families who had more, kids from families who had less. And so that to me is almost like being on the plane, but playing sometimes with a kid beneath the clouds in the different world. So we've always had some exposure, and this is the universal laws that we spoke about. Unless we have an awareness or we have an exposure to something that is the opposite to what we're experiencing, like that polarity, then we don't have anything to go by. Whereas if all we ever had was cold water, imagine the day where you first ever learn that there's even such thing as hot water. It would just be completely mind-blowing. And so I think the thing that really exploded my brain in going to these communities where they didn't have exposure, like they didn't have kids who had the best of everything and kids who had less than them. Everyone was on an equal playing field. They got fed when someone showed up with food for them. That was it. So I'm really curious about how our privilege of exposure plays out in our soul's evolution to even know that there's more, to even think that questioning why we're here is a question to ask rather than just getting up every day and eating when food is presented and getting on with life, like playing in the mud. I don't know. It's something I haven't reconciled yet, but it definitely gave me something to think about in terms of the privilege of exposure and taking awareness to a whole other level, because I probably would have said the same as you a few weeks ago. Now I'm looking at it going, well, these people legitimately just don't know. They don't know, and they don't even know that they don't know. But then people around them know that they don't know and try to get them to know. But then when they are presented with an opportunity to know, often they don't want to. And I think that was...
well, you could imagine as a you know, someone who's white and has ancestry in being a colonizer, right? And then you come to a new land and you tell someone, oh, you're going without. And they look around and go, without what? Well, God. You don't have God. You don't have the Queen. You don't have currency. You don't have trade. You don't have all of these things. And they look around going, well, what do we need that for? And so it sort of comes down to, and I think this is this kind of thing, and I think we'll kind of bring it back to trauma, right? What does a soul need? And then bring it back to like the universal laws, because there's some things where sort of like if a colonizer comes in and there is just a piece of land where all there is low vibration activities. People fighting, killing each other, taking, greed, all of that, right? then there's the opportunity to sort of say, you can live in harmony. We can trade as opposed to just take. There's a thing which is sort of balance and freedom, and what is it that you're looking for? Why is it that you're doing it that way versus potentially the opposite, which that's all been happening, but I'll come in and sort of go, you know what, I hereby claim this on behalf of blah, 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 blah. And then, oh, you don't like it? Have you met my weapon? It's not a spear or an arrow. It fires projectiles. So the bigger stick wins. So there's this sort of thing from a soul point of view, because, yeah, you're right. I've been to quite a few villages and stayed there, not for a long time, a couple of days, where there's no power, no running water. You kill the animals that day that you eat that night. You cook over a fire pit. Getting in and out is by foot or on the back of an elephant, if you're lucky. And people are happy there. So what is it that they're missing out on? So I guess it's sort of from the, what does the soul need versus what is now acceptable? Because as far as you can go back, royal bloodlines were kept in check through incest, because that's the way you kept it pure. Wasn't for pure intentions. It was to help keep the power sort of connected. So people would see that as normal back then. But I guess it comes down to these freedoms, these liberties, the use of lust and greed, gluttony, and all of these things. How have they played a role in shaping the environment for these people that don't know any better?
Yeah.
And deep down, would they, in that environment, sit back and go, I don't know what's wrong, but something's wrong. And then from that spark would then be the first person that walks the first step in that ability to create that awareness that is then shared with the others. And so for me, I believe if you zoom out far enough, it's that feeling that then translates into the thought. Feeling into the thought that then takes us down the, hey guys, we could be doing, I understand why we're doing this, but it doesn't feel right anymore.
Yeah.
So we either change through evolution or we will change through revolution. Zoom out far enough, look at the world stage at the moment. What do you think's happening? We've got people and politics and things that are happening at such a high level that, a bit like what you were saying, I need to break you before you actually realise there's something traumatic going on. Look at politics in the US that's going on at the moment. What do you think that guy's doing? He's breaking it to a point that people are going to realise, oh. And then the justice system. So I think it's even happening on a massive level.
And it's not until things are broken that you're willing to look back and go, oh my gosh, like that really wasn't okay. What was happening really wasn't okay. And
absolutely,
that's a really painful place to reach. And I think I've got an idea of where to pause this conversation and where to pick it up for the next one. I think for this particular stuff, understanding that you have to take ownership and autonomy over your own evolution. And if something is coming into your awareness, it's coming into your awareness for a reason. So even if it is uncomfortable, even if it is painful, remember that no one is forcing you to heal or grow. That's an invitation. And if that invitation is being presented to you, you get to choose. But you've got to understand that if you now, with this new awareness and this new realization, let's say it's in the context of relationship, if you now have the realization and the awareness that the relationship that you're in is unhealthy, it's abusive, it's violent, or whatever it is, you don't have to do anything about it. You can continue choosing the exact same relationship you've been in all those years, but the more your awareness grows, the stronger the feeling and the drive to take action is going to grow. And at some point, when you're ready to take action, there are people there to support you to step out of that. And so I think for this, I really want to be clear that we can't change the things that have happened in the past, but when we have an awareness of that what was happening was perhaps wrong, unhealthy, whatever it might be, know that you can be supported to make changes. And that feeling of trauma, that feeling of overwhelm, that feeling of discomfort, and I guess that earth-shattering, reality-shifting moment is a necessary crisis to force you to take action to change your situation. Because without that discomfort, it's too easy to stay in the dysfunction. So that's kind of the point that I wanted to make about that. If you're open to it, Dave, I would like to, again, just take off one more little chip of this bigger picture conversation and unpack that in our next episode. We'll keep these ones fairly short, but hopefully you guys are finding this an interesting conversation. I sure as heck have. And we want you to join in the conversation. Like, how has this mirrored your own experience? How has this, when we talk about that bomb of revelation, when you have had a revelation or you have been exposed to something that has helped you to understand that maybe what you previously thought might not have been kosher, how has that impacted your, I guess, path forward? Would love. I genuinely want to give people, Dave. Like, I think so often when we close a loop, when we land the plane and it's all smooth and it's all tidy and it's all neat and we have our nice conclusions, there's not really space for other people to share their conclusions with us. Whereas I feel like what I'm really excited about the previous episode and this episode is that we're finished with curiosity, with questions, not with us having the solutions, not with us having the conclusions, but just sharing a conversation and asking for you guys as our listeners to join the conversation with us. Actually share with us what came up, what were the questions you had, what thoughts do you have as you listen to this, what has it brought up or shown you about your own experience.